The battlefield was a mess. Smoke filled the air, and the distant sounds of war echoed in every direction. Explosions rumbled through the ground, shaking the earth beneath the soldiers' feet. For the human soldier, it felt like the end. His vision blurred, his limbs heavy and weak, and his breathing shallow. He could feel the blood pooling beneath him as the pain of his injuries overwhelmed him. He had fought hard, too hard perhaps. The alien forces were everywhere, and though the humans fought bravely, it seemed the battle was slipping away. The soldier, barely conscious, stumbled as he tried to get to his feet, but the world spun around him. He collapsed, his mind slipping into darkness. Just as his strength gave out, he caught a glimpse of something, or rather, someone, through the haze of smoke. It was a woman, but not like any woman he had ever seen. Her skin was a soft, pale blue, and her eyes, large and shimmering with an ethereal glow, locked onto his with a calm intensity that seemed to pierce through the chaos of the war. Her presence was oddly comforting, like a calm in the middle of a storm. She didn't seem to belong in this violent place. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His mouth felt dry, his body too weak to move. The figure knelt beside him, her hands hovering over his wounds. Her touch, although foreign, felt warm and soothing. "Don't worry," she whispered, though he could barely hear her over the sounds of the battlefield. "You will be fine." Her voice was soft, unlike anything he had heard before, gentle and reassuring. It was like a balm for his pain. His vision began to fade again, and the world around him seemed to slip away into a dark void. When he opened his eyes again, it was quiet. The sounds of war had vanished. There were no explosions, no screams. The only thing he could hear was his own heartbeat and the faint hum of machines around him. He blinked a few times, trying to adjust to the new surroundings. The walls around him were smooth and metallic, and there was a soft glow from the lights above. He tried to sit up but felt an intense pressure on his chest, as though something was holding him down. A sharp pain shot through his body, reminding him of the wounds he had suffered. But it was nothing like before. This time, the pain was manageable, as if something or someone had treated his injuries. He looked around, still disoriented, and then he saw her, standing quietly at the edge of the bed. The alien woman. She was just as he remembered. Soft blue skin, delicate features, and those glowing eyes that seemed to radiate a strange but calming energy. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, her eyes filled with concern, but also something deeper. There was no anger, no fear, just calm. "Where am I?" the soldier managed to croak, his voice barely a whisper. The alien woman stepped closer, her movements fluid and graceful. "You are safe," she said, her voice soothing. "I saved you." The soldier tried to remember how he got here, but his mind was foggy. The last thing he could clearly recall was the battle, the fierce fighting, the alien forces closing in. He had been hit, and everything after that was a blur. "Who?" he began, but the words didn't come. His mind was foggy, struggling to form coherent thoughts. "You were on the verge of death," she continued, her voice almost melodic. "But I was able to heal you. You're still alive because of me." Her words were simple but strange. How could she have healed him? He was a soldier from Earth, fighting against her kind. How could an alien save him? His head spun with questions, but he couldn't seem to form them all at once. He just stared at her in confusion. "What do you want from me?" he asked cautiously. His hand, still weak, rested on the bed as he tried to push himself up, but she gently stopped him. "I don't want anything," she said softly. "I only wanted to help." Her words seemed honest, but the soldier couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this. Why would an alien, someone from the very race he had been fighting, risk her life to save his? The question lingered in his mind, but he couldn't find the answers. "Why?" he asked, his voice still strained. "Why would you save me?" She smiled faintly, though it wasn't a smile of happiness. It was something else, something deeper. Because you're not just any soldier. You're different. The soldier's eyes narrowed, not understanding. He had been a part of countless battles, a cog in a war machine that never stopped. He was just another soldier. But the alien woman's words made him question that. She continued, "There's more to you than you realize, and I believe you can be part of something bigger than this war." The soldier didn't understand, but he also knew there was no way he could argue with her. He felt too weak, too disoriented to argue. All he could do was listen. "Rest now," she said, her voice soft and kind. "Your body needs time to heal. We will talk more soon." As she left the room, the soldier lay back in the bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts raced. He was alive, thanks to this mysterious alien woman. But why had she saved him? What did she mean by something bigger? There were more questions than answers. For now, all he could do was wait, and hope that the answers would come soon. The soldier's eyes fluttered open once again. The soft, rhythmic beeping of machines filled the air, and he could feel the gentle hum of the medical room around him. This place was nothing like the chaos of the battlefield. It was quiet, calm, almost peaceful. He could still feel the dull ache from his wounds, but it wasn't as sharp as before. It was as though something was gently holding his body together. He tried to sit up, but the pain was still too much. A soft, cool touch rested on his shoulder, and he turned to see the alien woman again. She was standing by his bedside, her luminous blue eyes watching him intently. The last time he had seen her, he was in the middle of the war, surrounded by enemies. Now, in this peaceful, sterile room, she was the only familiar presence. "Easy," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You need to rest. Your body is still healing." The soldier blinked, his mind still foggy from the events that had unfolded. He tried to remember what happened, but it all seemed like a dream now. The explosion, the crash, and then the alien woman, her hands over his wounds, her voice reassuring him that everything would be okay. He had thought he was dying, but somehow he was alive, and she had saved him. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rasping from disuse. His throat felt dry, as though he hadn't spoken in days. "You're safe," she replied, her eyes softening as she met his gaze. "I brought you here after I found you on the battlefield. I healed your wounds as best I could." He looked around, taking in his surroundings. The room was small but high-tech, filled with strange devices and soft, glowing lights. Everything had a sleek, futuristic feel. The walls shimmered with a smooth metallic sheen, and there were medical tools scattered around, most of them unfamiliar to him. The soldier looked back at her, his mind racing. "How did you do that? Heal me, I mean." Her expression remained calm, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. She sat down beside him on a chair, her movements graceful and fluid. "I have abilities that go beyond what you might expect. I'm not like your people, not like the soldiers you fight alongside. I have the power to heal and mend, to help those in need. It's a gift I've had for many years." The soldier's brow furrowed. He didn't know what to make of this. He had always seen the aliens as enemies, beings to be fought, not helped. But here she was, someone who had saved his life. "Why would you help me?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. The alien woman hesitated for a moment, her eyes briefly turning away. "Because you are different," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Not like the others. I can sense it in you. Different. I'm just a soldier. Nothing more." She shook her head. "You don't understand. There's more to you than you realize. You've been caught up in a war, in a system that tells you to fight and kill. But you—" She paused, her gaze locking with his once more. "You have a choice to do something greater. I believe that you can make a difference." The soldier felt a strange sensation in his chest, as if her words were reaching deep inside him. He had always followed orders, always fought because that was his duty. But now, as he lay there in a strange room with an alien woman beside him, he began to question everything. Was there really a chance for peace? Could there be more to life than war? Before he could speak, the woman stood up and began to move around the room. "You should rest now," she said softly. "I will return when you're ready." The soldier watched her as she left, her movements graceful and silent. As she disappeared through the doorway, he lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. What had she meant by "more to you than you realize"? What did she see in him that he didn't see himself? He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but it was no use. His mind kept racing. The war, his training, everything he had known. It all seemed so far away now. He wasn't sure what had changed, but he knew he felt different. The soldier who had fought on the front lines just days ago was no longer the same man. Hours passed before the door opened again. The alien woman returned, this time carrying a small tray with what looked like food. It was nothing like the rations he was used to eating. This was different, colorful, and aromatic, though he didn't recognize it at all. "I brought you something to eat," she said. "You need strength to heal, and this will help." The soldier eyed the food cautiously but was too hungry to turn it down. He tried a small bite and was surprised by the rich, delicate flavor. It was unlike anything he had ever tasted. As he ate, the woman sat beside him again, her presence calm and reassuring. "What happens now?" he asked between bites, his voice still hesitant. "Now you recover," she replied. "And when you are strong again, we can talk more. There is much for you to learn." The soldier nodded slowly, unsure of what to expect. But deep inside, he felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than the endless war. He looked at the alien woman, still unsure of her true intentions, but grateful for the life she had given him. As he finished eating, the woman stood and gave him a reassuring smile. "Rest now," she said. "The future is waiting, and you are a part of it." The soldier lay back, his mind still buzzing with unanswered questions. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of something new, hope. Days passed in a quiet haze as the soldier slowly regained his strength. The alien woman, whom he now knew as Lyra, continued to care for him. Each day, she helped him with small tasks, making sure he was comfortable and well-fed. The room, with its strange technology, became his world as he healed. Though he felt the pain of his injuries, there was something comforting about her presence. Lyra never asked him about the war or his life before. Instead, she spoke about the stars, about the different worlds she had visited, and the creatures she had encountered. She often told him stories of peaceful civilizations and ancient histories, far beyond the reach of the endless conflict on Earth. The soldier listened, fascinated but still unsure of where he fit into this new world. One morning, Lyra walked into the room carrying a strange device. It was a small orb, glowing with a soft light. She placed it on the table beside his bed, and the soldier looked at it curiously. "What's this?" he asked. "It's called a memory orb," Lyra explained. "It contains information about my people, our history, and the galaxy. I thought it might help you understand more about why I'm here." The soldier frowned, not sure if he was ready to learn more. His life had always been about fighting. The idea of learning about peace and history felt foreign to him, but there was something in Lyra's eyes, a quiet determination, that made him feel like this was important. "Why do you want me to know this?" he asked, his voice uncertain. "Because you have the power to change things," she said softly. "You are not like the others, the ones who only know how to fight. I believe you can understand." The soldier hesitated but then reached for the orb. As his fingers brushed against it, the light within the orb flickered. A soft hum filled the air, and suddenly, images began to form in front of him. The soldier watched in awe as the images showed distant planets, lush forests, and shining cities. He saw peaceful beings of all shapes and sizes living in harmony, their eyes filled with wisdom and kindness. It was unlike anything he had ever known. Lyra's voice echoed softly in his ears as the memories played out. "This is the way of my people," she explained. "We value peace, knowledge, and respect for all life. We have faced wars, but we have learned that there is always another way. It's not always easy, but it is always possible." The soldier felt a pang of guilt in his chest. The image of the peaceful civilizations contrasted sharply with the violence he had witnessed in his own life. He had always been taught that war was necessary, that it was the only way to protect his people. But now, seeing these civilizations, he began to wonder if there was another way, a way he had never been taught. As the Orcs' light dimmed and the images faded, the soldier sat back in his bed, feeling a weight he hadn't felt before. He had been so focused on fighting, on surviving, that he had never stopped to consider the possibility of peace. He had never questioned the reasons behind the war or the true cost of his actions. Liara watched him silently, waiting for him to speak. The soldier finally looked at her, his eyes filled with confusion and curiosity. "Why didn't anyone ever tell us about this?" he asked quietly. "Why didn't anyone tell us there was another way?" Liara's expression softened, and she sat down beside him. "Because not everyone wants peace," she said. "There are those who benefit from war, those who profit from conflict. It's easier to keep people fighting than to make them understand the truth. But that doesn't mean peace is impossible. It just takes those brave enough to seek it." The soldier's mind raced. He had always been a part of the war machine, a tool used to fight for his country's cause. He had never questioned his role, but now everything felt different. Liara's words stirred something deep within him, something he couldn't ignore. Do you think it's too late?" he asked, his voice full of doubt. "Is it too late to stop this war?" Liara's gaze was steady as she looked into his eyes. "It is never too late to change, but it won't be easy. The path to peace is long, and there will always be those who resist it. But every journey begins with a single step, and you, soldier, are one of the few who can make that step." The soldier felt a lump form in his throat. She was right. He had the power to change things, to do something that could end the endless cycle of violence. But the thought of going against everything he had been taught, everything he had fought for, filled him with fear. Liara seemed to sense his hesitation. She gently placed her hand on his, offering him a small but reassuring smile. "You are not alone in this. I will help you. And together, we can find a way." For the first time since he had woken up in this strange place, the soldier felt a sense of purpose. It wasn't the purpose of a soldier, trained to fight and die for a cause. It was a new purpose, one that didn't involve destruction, but creation of a future where peace could finally exist. The soldier didn't know how he would do it. He didn't know if he was ready to face the challenges ahead. But with Liara by his side, he felt a glimmer of hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference. As the days passed, the soldier continued to heal. But more importantly, he began to change. No longer was he just a soldier. He was becoming someone who could help create a new world, a world where peace was possible. And for the first time in a long time, he felt ready to take the first step. The soldier's days were becoming more meaningful. Each day he spent with Liara seemed to unlock something new within him. He was beginning to feel a shift, not just in his thoughts, but deep inside his heart. He wasn't just healing from his wounds. He was healing from a lifetime of war. And though the path ahead was uncertain, there was something comforting about Liara's presence that made him feel like he wasn't alone. It was during one of these quiet days that Liara came to him with something different. Her eyes, usually calm, were filled with a subtle urgency. She had something to share, something important. "Are you ready to hear my story?" she asked, sitting beside him on his bed, her tone soft but serious. The soldier looked at her, unsure of what to expect. They had spoken about many things, but she had never shared her personal story. Until now, it was as if she was a mystery, an enigma, someone who had saved him without ever truly explaining why. But now he could sense it was time for the pieces to fall into place. He nodded slowly. Yes, I think I am ready. Liara took a deep breath and began. I was born on a planet far from here, in a system that you would never reach with your technology. My people, the Waishar, have always been different from others. Our world is peaceful. No war, no violence. It's a world where people are free to live in harmony with nature and with each other. The soldier listened intently, his curiosity growing. A world without war. It seemed almost too impossible to imagine. He had been born into a world where conflict was a constant, where soldiers like him were raised for the sole purpose of fighting. To hear of a peaceful world was something he could. We have always focused on knowledge and understanding, Lyra continued. We believe that true strength lies in wisdom, not in fighting. We have no armies, no weapons like the ones you know. What we have is our ability to heal, to communicate, and to bring peace. But there are others in the galaxy who do not believe in peace. They believe in control, in power, in conquest. The soldier's mind began to race. He thought about his own people, his own mission. He had always been taught that the strength of a nation was determined by its ability to fight, to defend itself against enemies. Could it really be different? Was there a way to fight without violence? Over time, our peaceful world became a target for those who sought to control others. Lyra's voice grew quieter. We had no way to defend ourselves from their attacks, their demands. So we hid. We traveled to the farthest corners of the galaxy, hoping to escape their grasp. But the war eventually found us, just as it found your people. It's a cycle. The strong want to control the weak, and the weak fight back, not knowing that the fighting will only keep the cycle going. The soldier felt a strange weight in his chest. He could understand what Liara was saying. He had seen it all his life, fighting for what he was told was right, but never truly understanding why the war never seemed to end. He had been part of that cycle, unknowingly adding fuel to the fire. So, you came here to stop it? The soldier asked, his voice thick with emotion. Liara nodded. I came to help your people see that there is another way. But there are many who cannot see it, just as there are many who profit from war. You see, when your world was first discovered, it was seen as a resource, a prize to be taken. And in the rush for power, peace was lost. The soldier's heart sank. It was hard to hear, but he knew it was true. He had always been told that the war was necessary, that it was for the survival of humanity. But now, hearing it from her, from someone who had lived through it, he began to understand just how much of it was built on lies. I've been fighting for something I don't even understand, he said, more to himself than to Lyra. His voice was heavy with the realization. Not just. Lyra had told him that he was different, that he had the potential to change things. But the soldier wasn't sure if he was ready for that change. The war had always been his purpose. It was the reason he existed. He had grown up believing that Earth was fighting for survival, that his people needed to defend themselves against hostile forces. He had never questioned the reasons behind the war, until now. He felt torn between the life he had known and the possibility of a new path. Lyra had opened his eyes to something he had never considered. Peace, true peace, but the question still lingered in his mind. Could peace ever be achieved? Was it even possible to stop the war? The soldier got up from his bed, pacing the room. The quiet hum of the medical equipment around him seemed distant, as if he were in a different world. His thoughts were spinning, each one more confusing than the last. He had always believed that wars had winners and losers, but what if this war had no real winners? Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts. You don't have to do this alone. Together, we can show your people that there is another way. It won't be easy, but I believe in you. The soldier looked at her, his mind clearer than it had been in days. He wasn't sure how he would do it, but for the first time, he was beginning to understand. He had a choice. It was a difficult choice, one that might change everything, but it was his to make. And as he stood there, staring out at the horizon, he felt something shift inside him. The weight of the war, the weight of all the years of fighting, felt a little lighter. The road ahead was unknown, but he knew one thing for sure. He had to try. He had to choose. The soldier's mind had been racing ever since his conversation with Lyra. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on his chest. Every night, he lay awake in the sterile room, staring at the ceiling, torn between the life he had known and the unknown path Lyra had shown him. Could he really make a difference? Could he leave everything behind, everything he had ever fought for, in order to follow this strange, new idea of peace? He had always been a soldier who followed orders, a soldier who fought for the survival of his people. But now, Lyra's words echoed in his mind. You have the power to change things. How could he reconcile his role as a soldier with the idea of peace? How could he stand up for peace when he had been trained to fight? He had spent years fighting battles, believing that he was protecting his people. He had never stopped to think about the cost of the war. The lives lost, the families torn apart, the hatred that spread like wildfire across planets. It was all for survival, wasn't it? But now, standing in the presence of someone who had lived a life without war, someone who had risked everything to show him another way, the soldier began to wonder, was there a better way? Was there a chance for peace? As he walked through the hallways of the medical facility, the soldier couldn't shake the feeling that the time to make his choice was coming. He knew Lyra was waiting for him. She had been patient, always there when he needed her, offering her wisdom without pushing him. But he couldn't delay any longer. The decision had to be made. He reached Lyra's room, where she was quietly reading. When she saw him standing in the doorway, she smiled softly. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with a sense of anticipation. The soldier hesitated for a moment. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had spent so much of his life being told what to do, following orders without question. Now, here he was, standing on the edge of a new world, a world where he could choose his own path. But the fear of the unknown held him back. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice quiet. "I've never had to make a choice like this before. I've always been told what to do, always had a clear mission. But now, it's different. What if I'm not strong enough to do this? What if I make the wrong choice?" Lyra set the book down and stood, walking over to him. "There is no right or wrong choice, soldier. There is only the choice you make, and no one is born knowing what to do. We learn as we go. You are strong, but strength isn't just about fighting. Strength is about knowing when to fight and when to walk away." The soldier swallowed hard, his chest tightening. Lyra's words were so different from everything he had been taught. He had always believed that strength was about overcoming obstacles, defeating enemies, and surviving against all odds. But now he realized true strength might be something else entirely. He looked at her, his eyes searching for answers. "I want to believe you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I want to believe that peace is possible. But how can I be sure? How can I be sure that this isn't just some dream, something impossible?" Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. "The only way to know is to try. If we never try, we'll never know what's possible. There will be obstacles, yes. There will be people who don't understand. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying." The soldier nodded slowly, absorbing her words. The fear was still there, but it was beginning to fade. It wasn't the fear of failure that haunted him now, but the fear of staying the same. The fear of doing nothing. For the first time in his life, he realized that maybe it was time to stop being a soldier in the old sense. Maybe it was time to become something else, a leader, a voice for change. "I've spent my whole life following orders," he said softly, his voice full of realization. "But maybe it's time to start making my own choices." Lyra smiled, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. "That's all I've ever wanted for you, to see the power within yourself." The soldier took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He knew there would be challenges ahead. But he also knew that it was time to take a step into the unknown. Time to fight for something different. Time to fight for peace. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll try to change things. I'll fight for peace." Lyra's smile widened, and she stepped closer to him, her hand resting on his arm. "Together, we can make it happen. You're not alone in this." For the first time in days, the soldier felt a sense of clarity. The confusion and doubt had faded, replaced by a quiet determination. He didn't have all the answers, and he didn't know exactly how he would achieve peace, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't keep fighting a war that didn't make sense. He couldn't keep being part of the cycle of violence. It was time to break that cycle. It was time to be part of something better. Lyra looked at him, her eyes full of understanding. "We will need to reach others. There are many who will resist change, who will fight to keep the war going. But you can help them see. You can help them understand." The soldier nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was ready to face it. The road to peace wouldn't be easy, and there would be many who didn't understand. But he had made his choice. He would fight for peace, no matter the cost. As the soldier and Lyra stood together, side by side, they both knew that this was just the beginning. The challenges were far from over, but together, they would face whatever came next. The days that followed felt like a blur to the soldier. With every passing moment, he could feel the weight of his decision pressing on him. It had been the hardest choice of his life, to leave behind everything he had known and step into the unknown. But now that he had chosen a new path, he felt something that he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to make things better. Lyra had been by his side every step of the way, offering guidance and support. She had told him that the road to peace would be difficult, that there would be those who resisted change. But together, they had made the decision to try. They had decided to fight for peace, to show the galaxy that there was another way. The soldier sat in a quiet room, deep in thought. His mind was filled with images of war, images of soldiers on the battlefield, of explosions, and of people torn apart by violence. It had all seemed so normal to him once. But now, as he sat there, the weight of it all felt unbearable. He had been part of that system, part of the destruction. But he couldn't be that person anymore. He had chosen a different path. Lyra's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Are you ready?" she asked, standing in the doorway. Her expression was calm, but there was a quiet strength in her eyes. She had been preparing for this moment, just as he had. The soldier stood up, his heart racing. "I think I am," he said, though there was still uncertainty in his voice. He was ready, but he wasn't sure what would happen next. All he knew was that he had made a choice, and he couldn't go back. Lyra smiled, her eyes full of reassurance. "Good, because it's time." They walked together to a large communication room, a place that was far different from the battlefields the soldier had once known. This room was filled with technology, but it wasn't designed for destruction. It was designed for communication, for connection. The soldier had never seen anything like it before. This was what peace could look like. People coming together to share ideas, to understand each other. Lyra turned to him. "This is where we begin. We need to reach out to others, those who are still trapped in the cycle of war. We need to show them that peace is possible, that there's a way out." The soldier nodded. He knew this wouldn't be easy, but he also knew that this was the only way. They had to start somewhere, and this was it, the first step toward ending the war. They activated the communication system, and soon, images of people from all corners of the galaxy appeared on the screens before them. Some were familiar faces, soldiers from Earth, people he had fought beside. Others were unfamiliar, beings from distant worlds who had been caught in the same cycle of violence. One by one, they spoke to the soldier and Lyra. Some were skeptical, others angry, but they all listened. They had been raised in a world of war, just like him. They had been told that peace was impossible, that the fight was the only way forward. But now, as they heard the soldier's voice, his words filled with conviction, They began to question everything they had been taught. "We don't have to keep fighting," the soldier said, his voice steady. "I've seen the destruction, the pain. But I've also seen something else. I've seen the possibility of peace, and I know we can make it happen. It won't be easy, but we can make the choice to stop, to break the cycle." There was silence for a moment as the people on the screens absorbed his words. The soldier could see the doubt in their eyes, the uncertainty. But he also saw something else, something he hadn't expected: hope. One by one, the people began to speak up. Some shared stories of their own struggles, of the pain they had endured. Others admitted that they were tired of fighting, tired of losing loved ones. It was clear that, deep down, they all wanted peace, but they had been afraid to believe it was possible. As the conversation continued, the soldier felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had made the right choice. He had chosen to fight for something bigger than himself. And now, he could see that others were starting to do the same. When the conversation ended, Lyra turned to him with a smile. "You did it," she said softly. "You showed them that peace is possible. You gave them hope." The soldier nodded, feeling a sense of pride that he had never felt before. He had spent so much of his life fighting for a cause he didn't fully understand. But now he was fighting for something that mattered, something that could change the future. "We did it," the soldier corrected her, his voice full of gratitude. "We did it together." Lyra's smile widened. "Yes, we did." As the soldier looked around at the people who had joined them, he felt a sense of unity that he had never experienced before. These weren't just soldiers and civilians from different worlds. They were people, human beings, who had shared the same pain, the same fear, and now they were coming together to create something better. The soldier knew that there was still much work to be done. There would be those who resisted. There would be challenges along the way. But for the first time in his life, he felt confident that they could overcome them. Together. As the sun began to set outside, the soldier stood next to Lyra, looking out at the horizon. The world was changing, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was part of something greater than himself. A new beginning.